everyone, thanks for joining. I'm Karishma, the NetSuite Director at Rand Group. We work with organizations across the full lifecycle, from implementation to optimization and ongoing support. And regardless of where a company is in that journey, one of the biggest gaps we see is around reporting and visibility. For example, we'll see teams closing the months in NetSuite, but still exporting data into Excel just to understand performance. There's a lot of data, but it's not really driving any decisions. So today we want to walk through how we can turn that data into something more actionable using dashboards and analytics. So let's get started with what we typically see. Whether a company is evaluating NetSuite or already using it, the data isn't the issue. NetSuite has the data. The challenge is turning that data into something more actionable. And that's assuming the data is clean and structured properly. Because if the data isn't reliable, none of this will work. You can have the best dashboards in the world, but if the underlying data isn't clean, you won't trust what you're seeing. So with these assumptions, let's say your CFO asks you, what's our cash position and what's overdue? Instead of going straight to the system, this turns into pulling reports, exporting into Excel, stitching data together, and by the time you get the answer, it's already outdated. So the real problem isn't reporting, it's enabling faster and clearer decisions. And depending on where you are in NetSuite, this tends up to show differently. If you're evaluating NetSuite, the focus is usually on getting the system live. So teams are focused on transactions, integrations, and go-live timelines, but not necessarily what decision they need to make after they go live. And if you're already using NetSuite, we'll see dashboards in place, but the teams are still exporting data because those dashboards aren't answering the right questions. So while the situation may look different, the underlying challenge is the same. How do we turn data into something more actionable? So let's make this real. If I'm a CFO, the moment I log into NetSuite, this is what I want to see. KPIs that show me my cash, receivable, performance. I immediately know where my business stands. For example, if I see cash is trending down week over week, that's something I need to act on immediately. And every number here is drillable. So if I see receivables are too high, I can click in, see which customers are overdue and by how much. I can also see things that are trending, like revenue dropping for a specific period, and understand quickly why. But most importantly, it's showing me what needs attention. Overdue invoices, large balances, or variances versus budget. So instead of figuring out what had happened, I can focus on what to do next. That's the shift from reporting to decision making. One of the biggest mistakes we see is trying to build one single dashboard for everyone. Different roles need completely different views. A CFO is focused on cash and performance. A controller is focused on close and reconciliation, whereas the operation team is focused on inventory and fulfillment. For example, the operation team doesn't need to see the burn rate. They need to understand their inventory and the orders. If everyone sees the same dashboard, no one's really seeing what actually matters. At the same time, this doesn't mean you need to build everything from scratch. You might have one core dashboard across the team, but with slight variations. But access is still controlled by the role. So if an operation manager user might have the same dashboard as a controller, but they won't see the same financial metrics like cash or burn. They'll only see what's relevant to them. So permissions always drive visibility. Everything here is fully drillable, so even if the inventory looks off, you can go ahead, click, see which item, location, and transaction is driving this. We can build shortcuts so users can immediately log in and right from there go into a customer record, go into an invoice, or create brand new transactions. So you can get consistency across organization and the ability to act quickly. Now everything we just walked through, dashboard KPIs drill down, that doesn't exist on its own. It's powered by what's happening underneath, and that's where safe searches come in. Safe searches are really the engine behind dashboard. So here you can immediately see what needs attention. For example, we've created this safe search that shows any invoices that are past 90 days due, highlighted in red, and any invoices that are between 60 to 90 days, highlighted in orange. So instead of running an aging report, it's right there in front of you the moment you log into NetSuite. So this is happening automatically. The moment an invoice becomes overdue, it populates on the safe search. No one's having to pull any reports. All of this is real-time, automatic updates, and it's fully drillable. So you can click into any of these invoices and see what's actually happening behind the scenes. So imagine this. The user logs in the morning, reviews their dashboard, see what's overdue, what's at risk, and from there decides what to act on first. So instead of searching for the problem, the system is bringing it to you. Now that we've looked at Safe Search, this is really the next step in the evolution of reporting within NetSuite. Safe searches are great for organizing data, filtering information, and surfacing the records that you need. They're incredibly useful for day-to-day operation and visibility, but in many cases, what teams really need to see goes beyond a list of records. They need to understand very quickly what the data is telling them, and that's where Suite Analytics comes in. Suite Analytics takes the same data and turns it into something much more visual, interactive, and easier to consume. So instead of seeing rows of data, we can start looking at trends, summaries, and drill down insights all in one place. So on this example, what I'm showing you here is a workbook view. Starting on the left, we have a chart that visualizes revenue trends over time. This gives us a quick, high-level understanding of how the business is performing instead of exporting reports and building something in Excel. We can immediately see how things are trending month over month. And because this is all native to NetSuite, it's continuously updating as transactions are being entered. So we're not relying on static reports, we're looking at something much more closer to real time. Then as we move to the right, we can break that down further and see which customers are actually driving that revenue. So now we're moving from just seeing what's happening to understanding what's behind it. For example, if revenue is trending up or down, leadership usually wants to know why. Is it being driven by few key customers, or is it spread across the base? This view helps answer that question immediately. And then as we move down to the bottom, this is where the drill down capability comes in. We can go from the high-level summary directly into the transaction details without leaving this workbook, without running any other reports or exporting any data. So if something stands out, we can immediately investigate, take action. And that's really the value here. This isn't about reporting, it's about enabling faster, more informed decision making. You can go from summary to insight to detail all in one workbook. It also supports different roles across the business. Executives can focus on trends, managers can focus on the drivers, and the analysts can go into the transaction level detail, all within the same framework. So if safe searches are about surfacing data, Suite Analytics is really about turning that data into insight. But where this really becomes powerful is when you see it live inside NetSuite. So what I'm now going to do is jump into the system and show you how this works in real time, how quickly we can go from raw data to insight and then drill into the details. So now we're going to start looking at analytic workbooks within NetSuite, and then we'll go into safe searches and then tie everything together by going to dashboards. So to go into your analytics workbook, all you need to do is click on this analytics tab. Now I am logged in as a controller, so depending on the role that you have and the permissions you have, things may look slightly different and you may not have access to everything. You would just have to contact your administrator to get access if you do want to run any of these reports and you don't have the permissions to do so. So coming here on my screen, you will see I have two little options here. One's a workbook and one's a data set. So I do want to take some time to explain what the difference is. So a data set is all of the data that is behind the scenes when you are creating any of these analytic views. Your data set is where you are determining, are you pulling the data from a transaction, a customer, any of your segmentations? So it's really determining where that data is coming from. That's also where you are setting any filters or criteria you may have when you are trying to put these analytics together. Then the workbook sits on top of that. So you first need your data sets, and then the workbook comes into play where you are starting to build the analytics and the graphs based on that. So let's start by looking at one of the workbooks that we have created for you, and we kind of walk through the different setups that we have done. So there is this workbook that we've created. It's sales for the year, and as you see, it is coming from this data set called Invoice Open. If I go ahead and click this little 3 buttons, your ellipse, and you open the data set, you will see here are all my criteria. Currently, it's coming from transactions. I am asking, hey, show me everything that's within this fiscal year with the type of invoice. And I only want to see the header information. I'm not really interested in seeing all the different lines. I'm just trying to see everything summed up together. Over here, if I wanted to pull in any additional columns, I'm able to easily do that by just holding the field and dragging it into the position I want to drop it in. So let's say I want it right there. If I don't want it, you can just click this button here and just say remove columns. You're very easily able to just drag and move any of these columns in the ideal position you want them to be in. Once you make any of these changes, you are able to apply it to a workbook or just do a save as. Now, because this is not a data set that I have created, I am not able to change it in my controller role. I can do a save as. Now let's go back into the workbook. So I will see all of the columns that were initially selected in my data set. I'm able to pick them from here and drag them and drop them wherever I would like, or I can remove them if I don't need them any longer. As you see, it does take a couple of seconds to populate, but once they're there, you're able to run any analytics based on this. Now, this is a great way that we can kind of drill in. We can click on these invoice numbers. We can click on these entities to see what's going on. So let's look at the graph that we've created for you guys. So we have a monthly sales by customer. So we decided in the X column, we just want to see our months. So going back just to see the trends. And then we want the series, which are down here, to be our customers. Our measures are going to be the total sales. So over here, it's very easy to identify in every month which was the highest customer that bought in the most sales. So if I look at March, it will be Abbott. If I look at February, it was a very close call, but it was probably Riverboat, and the list kind of goes on. Again, this is a very interactive graph, and you are able to kind of hover around it and see what's going on, but this is great for just taking screenshots and having more information. Then if we go into total sales per year, we're able to just pull, hey, just show me in a table what are my entities and what are the total amounts. Pretty simple, and you are able to export this if you wanted to. So this is where everything ties in together. You are able to update the data set saying that, hey, I'm not able to find everything I need. I need to bring in additional information. You can just scroll down here and get in any additional information if you wanted to. Now let's talk about searches. In order to create a brand new search, you need to have the correct permissions to do so. So again, contact your administrator if you're not sure, if you get an error. Not a problem, they should be able to fix it for you. So in order to create a new search, you would go to Reports, hover over that, and go to New Search. That will bring you to this screen, which shows you the different types of searches you can create it off of. So you can create it off of accounts, your classifications, if you have any segmentations, off of your vendors, employees, customers, transactions, almost anything you can create a safe search off of. If you have an existing safe search that you want to locate, you can easily put the safe search name right up top here, or go to Reports, go to Safe Searches, and go to All Searches to find it. If you go ahead and do so, you can quickly sort by what was recently created, what was recently modified or executed, if that makes it easier for you to find that particular safe search. So let's talk about a safe search that we created for you guys, right? So this is showing you your overdue AR and collections. What this is showing you right now is that anything that's over 60 days is highlighted in red, anything over 30 days is highlighted in orange, and anything below that, there's no highlights because it's still in the green zone. This is now coming from your AR aging, but this is now being brought up here. You may ask, why do I need to create a safe search if I already have that information in my AR aging? Fun thing is that you can add this with the highlights onto your dashboard, which we'll do later together. In order to create this, if I go edit the search, you will see that we have a couple of different criterias and highlights restrictions that we have put in place. So the criteria is that we said, hey, just show me invoices. I don't want to see any other type of transaction, but I want to see anything that is open and not been paid. Also, I want to see what mainline is true. What this means is I only want to see the header level of the invoice and not the detail. And show me anything that is within this fiscal year. That is what criteria is. It's pretty much filters that are happening behind the screen in order to provide you any results. The next tab is your results. Your results will show you the different columns that will display when you actually run the safe search. So these are the different columns. If you want to rename them, you can go ahead and rename them. You're able to do some fun stuff with safe searches, actually create formulas, Next is highlight. So we did use this, as you saw, and this is where we are telling the system and telling the Safe Search that's saying that if anything's overdue by 60 days, mark it as red. Anything between 30 and 60, mark it as orange. What you're also able to do is you're able to set up emails if you wanted to, which we have done. So we're pretty much saying, hey, according to my schedule, send this email to Karishma and Isla. We can customize the Safe Search saying, hi, please review this file for today, and attach it as a CSV. They can also attach the links to this particular record as well if they wanted to. And we set up a schedule that is going to send it every Tuesday and Wednesday to us at 2 a.m. Best part of Safe Search is there are audit trails. So anytime anyone is changing anything, you're able to see that, or anyone's running the Safe Search, you're able to see that as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this Safe Search and rerun it. You will see if I open up this little filter, I do have filters over here for date fiscal year, and the reason being is maybe right now I want to see his fiscal year end, but maybe during month end close I want to see this period, what my AR collections are looking like. So that's why I like to have the filters up top here. Now the benefit of this, of having this on your dashboard, is that I can be more proactive than reactive. So before the month is closing, I can be like, okay, let me call YTech and understand why there is a delayed payment for $2,703. If I wanted to, I can go right from here and click onto my invoice and research and understand what had happened. So looking at the invoice, I can see that it was for January 1st, that it was created from a sales order for this particular item. If I go into my communications, if there are any post-its or notes that say, yes, expect delayed payments, I can then review them. I don't see anything like that. So I'll go back to this report and be like, okay, I need to call YTech and see what's happening. Again, this is where having everything on your dashboard as a controller, I'm able to see and follow up faster and decide how my day is going to go rather than deal with this during month-end close. Now, if I wanted to export my Safe Search, I am able to do that by hitting these buttons. This is to export as CSV, or I can export them as Excel if I wanted to. I am able to send by email or export them in PDF and print as well. All right, so we've talked about the analytics workbook, we've talked about safe searches, and now we're going to talk about dashboard and how everything ties in together. So when we're logged in here, you will see this is the dashboard that we have created for one of the controller roles. We'll show you how to customize it based on your needs, very high level training, and walkthrough. So if I wanted to change the layout, I can go to layouts up top here and change the structure of my dashboard. I personally like the three columns because I get to see at the time I log into NetSuite, the most important thing should be at the top of my screen. Without me having to scroll down, make any effort, I should see what is the most important thing for me as a controller. One should be my reminder, so anything that I need to do for today, that should be in my reminders. Bills I need to approve, purchase orders I need to approve, any KPIs, do I need to review any reports, those are in my tiles here. And then also my KPIs over here as my any kind of indicators for my performance as this company. So talking about reminders, if I wanted to see them and they're not there, I can always go ahead and set up and add additional new reminders. Very easy thing to do. If I wanted to see all the reminders that also don't have anything that I need to do, but I still want to make sure, I can say, hey, show me all to 0. So that shows me I don't have any tasks to complete, I don't have any customers to renew. But as you see, this can get kind of jumbled up, which is why we like to keep it very clean and uncheck the 0 results. This keeps it very clean and it tells me, all right, these are the tasks that needs to be done. Up top here are all my tiles. So from right here, I can go ahead and click onto balance sheet and it'll open up my balance sheet reports rather than having to navigate anything. Makes it very simple and it remembers the last filters that you had when you logged into your balance sheet. I'm also able to then see my key performance indicators, and these are some of the indicators that are, as a controller, are very important. I want to see sales this period versus same month last quarter to date. I want to see what the changes are. I want to be able to see graphically what the changes are as well. Now over here, you'll also see the safe search that we were talking about not too long ago, our overdue AR collections. If I wanted to, I can drag this up right up top here, and this is the first thing I see when I log into NetSuite. It is my choice of where I want to position this. Scroll down a little bit more, I'll be able to see any navigation shortcuts that I have created for myself in this particular role. So as a controller, I want to be able to see my classes, my segmentations, my master data, transactions, any reports. I'm able to do that. But over here, I'm also able to see any other KPI graphs that I have. So as you see on my dashboard, the moment I log in, if I just scroll down, I am able to see a lot of data that is live. You're able to also just hit refresh and see if there are any new transactions that were put in while we were chatting. Very simple. And then we're also able to add in the intelligent close manager. NetSuite makes it very convenient for any of the users to add in. Now you may ask me, hey, how do I bring in the analytics workbook? Or how do I bring in a new safe search? Or how do I bring in anything new? Very simple. You can go to personalize and you can go ahead and you can bring analytics. You can bring any kind of, if I scroll down here, I can bring in custom searches. I can bring in more portlets, any recent records. There are many different options that I can bring in. Some fun things is that I can also bring in, let's say I want to bring my subsidiary navigator. I want to see my subsidiary structure. I'm able to do that as well if I wanted to. So the subsidiary navigator pretty much tells you high level what your subsidiary structure is that you've created within NetSuite. Now, but the fun part is that, let's say if I move the subsidiary navigator up top here, and I want to now only see, I want to see what is in Canada. If I click Canada, all of my KPI and everything that I see on my homepage will get refreshed based on what is in Canada. It will not show me any other entity. If I want to see what's in Germany, again, just click it, let NetSuite do its refresh, which it's doing right now, and it's going to do the same exact thing. So it automatically refreshes based on the subsidiary that you have selected. If I want to go ahead and select all of them again, very simple. I'm going to go ahead and pick my headquarters, and it'll automatically select all of the subsidiaries and refresh all of my tiles and KPIs. One thing to always be mindful is that if your KPIs are not looking correct, it may be based on the subsidiary navigator if you do have them kind of drilled down to a specific one. You're also able to change subsidiary up top here if you ever wanted to without bringing in your subsidiary navigator. Everything that you see on your dashboard is movable. We can collapse it if you wanted to, if you don't want to see certain things, or you can make them expanded. It does take time. The more data that you have on your dashboard, it does at times take time to load it and actually have data come through. So your dashboard is very user-friendly. You're able to collapse them and hide whatever you don't want to see, but you can also expand them. Just keep in mind, if you do have a lot of things on your dashboard, it can take a bit to update because it is pulling the data from the back and getting everything forward for you at one glance. Right from your dashboard, you are able to go ahead and view the transactions if you wanted to. You're able to also drill down and see specific reports. So if I wanted to see my expenses and I click on that, it'll bring me right into my income statement and it'll update the filters the way I need it to be updated. It is very user-friendly and very easy to use. I'm able to move certain portlets if I wanted to and replace them in a different direction. Very simple. And if I wanted to share them amongst other team members, again, not too hard to do. So stepping back, most organizations don't have data problem. They have visibility problem. NetSuite has the data, and as long as the data is clean and it's structured, you should be able to utilize it to make real-time decisions. That's really what we're trying to drive here. We're happy to answer any questions, but it's been a great pleasure, and we really appreciate your time.